Welcome to Pixelated episode 110. I'm your host, Will Saddleberg. With a break in the news ahead of the Pixel 11 launch, we're zooming out to take a look at the state of Android. From hardware to software to camera quality and even smart glasses, it's an interesting time for our favorite operating system / ecosystem. And myself, Damien, and Abner all have some big picture thoughts. It all starts right after this message from our sponsor, Proton. Grab your phone and take a look at your app drawer right now. You've probably found yourself relying on these same old apps and services since the Nexus days, and what suited you best back then might not be the right choice in 2026. Luckily, Proton can help bring you into a privacy-first ecosystem built for our modern age. Proton offers practically every service you could possibly need under the sun across every platform, including email, calendar, file storage, password management, document editors, and, of course, a trusted VPN. Built with class-leading end-to-end encryption, Proton's entire suite is fast, intuitive, and secure, and export tools mean you don't need to worry about leaving data behind on those other apps. Pixelated listeners can save 30% off an annual subscription to Proton Unlimited, which includes 500 gigabytes of cloud storage, custom email domains, a dedicated customer support team, and so much more. It's what's best for your current phone, not whatever you were using back in 2013. Upgrade to Proton today and save 30% on your annual subscription by heading to proton.me/9to5google or by clicking the link in the show notes. That's proton.me/9to5google. Thanks to Proton for sponsoring Pixelated.
So it's a bit of a strange time, guys, isn't it? I think, well, first and foremost, it's summer, so we're in this like pre-release season. We're waiting for pre-releases, but I don't know. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about. We were kind of percolating some ideas and stuff, and I feel like Android in general is in a really weird spot. I don't necessarily think truly negatively, but I guess we've lost a few players. We have this really weird situation where Google's making ground while everyone else seems to be faltering. Yeah. I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking. The state of Android. Let's call it the state of Android. And this is a bit of an address to kind of get us talking about this. Let's get our juices flowing. There's some cool products out there, but I don't know. Maybe are we in the minority talking positively about this? I'm not sure.
Well, I think this is a good point to talk about. Like, I think right before Pixel is like a good point to kind of examine it, because I do think the state of Android is in flux at the moment. And I don't think it is completely, it's no single player's fault, right? I think it is largely economic trends that are impacting, on the hardware side for sure. Like I feel like a lot of the, not that we weren't already in a stagnated market, but I think a lot of the stagnation we're feeling this year in particular, where it does feel like nearly every new release is like kind of just reheated from last year, if not from 2024. It has been accelerated just because of like, I think the RAM crunch. I think companies saw this coming. I also think that to a certain extent with the, maybe a Fold 8 shaped exception, we have sort of hit this like, we have gone beyond peak smartphone. And we have gone into like, I've said this before, but it really is. It's like every washing machine you're going to look at Home Depot is like essentially the same. And that's where we're at with phones. Like it might be slightly different from the one next to it, but you are getting a tall phone with somewhere between 2 and 3 cameras. Let's average it. 2.5 cameras on the back, a front-facing camera, stereo speakers. Like the hardware is so good. Like there is no bad piece of hardware unless you're really shopping in like the, soon to be gone $200 range, that I think it can be really easy for people to just like kind of, I don't know. It's not exciting, right? Like it's not exciting. And then on the software side, I think how you feel about Android as an operating system is going to come down to how you feel about Gemini at this point. Like they are so intrinsically linked.
I do wonder, you mentioned like that $200 range. I'm surprised we haven't seen like a bit of resurgence of, and I don't want to say reheated, but kind of like reoriented. I use marketing speak for the people out there, is they reorient these phones that maybe use older hardware. And I mean, me and you, Will, we love gaming handhelds. We love our like Retro Pockets, Amber Nick, AYN Thor, whatever you want to point out. A lot of those devices kind of use older hardware to overcome some of the shortcomings that they potentially have had. I am so surprised we haven't seen more companies try and do this. And I thought Samsung might use maybe some of those slightly older Qualcomm chips that still supported and try and reheat them into a new device. Let's take, for example, the mid-range of the market. The A series Pixel has always felt like a really good spot to be. And now it feels like there are going to be devices that are targeting that range with way lesser specifications than people will criticize the A series for. I don't know. It feels really at odds with where progress has been in Android for the past decade, 15 years.
I think this is just a mature market. We've said this before, but laptops is the best equivalent. I don't necessarily think that this is endemic of everything. I just think this is how the steady state of technology, barring any major hardware innovations, be it batteries or cameras or anything like that. I think this is just a natural endpoint of this form factor, and it was absolutely nice when we had innovation every single year, but that hardware is hardware is very mature, and until anything happens, that's the state of phone hardware.
Yeah. I mean, what's left to ask for to a certain extent?
Even
a
fantastic
from
question.
Enthusiasts, what do you unless you're asking for things that were removed, right? Like if you're like, bring back the headphone jack, which I'm happy you're fighting that battle out there if that's you, but it's obviously not going to happen. So if you're living in the world of realism, and I also think most people just don't really, they truly have moved beyond the headphone jack. I think it's been a decade and you can feel it.
Has it been a decade? Has it been a decade since we started seeing phones remove that? That's crazy.
Oh yeah, I believe it must
like
be
3 years ago.
Because the Pixel, the launch Pixel, they make the whole big point on stage
2.
of we
right.
have a headphone jack because Apple had just removed it, and then a year later with the Pixel 2, they removed the headphone jack, and everybody's like, Google, you advertised on this 11 months ago. This is the 10-year anniversary of AirPods and the removal of the and I gotta be honest, I really feel like, for the most part, unless you're really going out of your way to lean into the counterculture aspect of using older tech, most people have adopted wireless headphones. I think the benefits clearly outweigh the cons with those, and people grabbed onto them. So a tangent, but outside of that, what the main Pixel 11 leak has been is the notification LED back? That's where we're at. It's just kind of what can we recycle from 20 years ago that maybe we can find new ways to use in the AI era. But largely speaking, I think these phones are all you'd be doing is asking for thinner or longer battery life, or I don't think anybody is still asking for larger screens, but you get it. There's no obvious I hope my next phone does blank.
I think maybe Abner's in agreement with me here, is that sometimes I think when you try and stay on the precipice or the in air quotes bleeding edge, which isn't changing that drastically now, when you get something like an A series phone or something a little bit cheaper, it kind of puts into perspective what you actually value in the phone. Maybe you don't need the best of this or the best of that. And I understand as a consumer, it makes sense to buy the best that's available to you within your budget. And I would always say to people, if they're looking for an Android phone specifically, buy the best one that you can buy. But I do think sometimes it's quite refreshing to have something that doesn't necessarily play by the same rules and maximizes what it has, maximizes within its limitations. I wonder if that's stifled a little bit. I don't know. You're still using the Pixel 10a, Abner, right? Currently?
I moved to the 10 Pro like a month out before the event, but that's purely just for work reasons. If I had my choice, I'd definitely still be on the 10A.
I do find it weird. Maybe this is like the apathy towards it is the fact that you kind of said it a little bit, Will, was that we haven't necessarily seen major changes, and we've kind of been fighting a battle of make this tiny thing better, this tiny complaint that enthusiasts have. Like, I would love to, like, I don't know if you you guys do this very often, is when you see people out in the public and you kind of like trying to judge in your brain of like, why would they use that phone specifically? Like, when I see someone with the Fold, I'm like, why would they choose a Fold specifically?
Yeah.
Because I'm still in my brain, apart from the Fold 8 has kind of convinced me that that's the form factor that should have won out. It's crazy. But I'm looking at it. Maybe we're at the point where the platform's so mature that we want everything to be perfect, and that's just the kind of how capitalism works. It can't ever be perfect. Everything.
I mean, we've also they're commodities now, to the point where it's like, I mean, Abner, you're saying, you know, if not for this job and for the launch coming up, like you would still be on the 10A. Like, you know, I think I spoke recently about like thinking about rising phone costs, and my dad, who was an iPhone user, like thinking he was on an iPhone 12, and I'm like, we have to do this before. The rumor is that the iPhone 18 is launching next year and not in the fall, but like I think they're going to raise prices on everything regardless in September. So it's like, I have to get him on something. He's having issues with his phone. He only asked me to upgrade his device when it's really bad, and he had asked me, and like I was like just gonna do like, okay, here's the iPhone 17. And then, like, truly, and not to talk too much about that side of the fence, but it's a very similar story with the Pixel 10 and the 10A, I think. I looked down the list and I was like, there is nothing here on the 17 that my dad cares about that isn't on the 17E. He's not going to care about the ultra-wide camera. He's not going to care about the faster refresh rate. If I tried to describe to my dad the difference between 60 and 120 hertz, he would be like, I don't really understand why I need to care about that. Why am I paying $200 more for that? Like, I went down the list and I was like, oh, like phones really have hit the point where it's like, if you're just like an average user, like you really can spring for the mid-range option and like be fine, because I really don't think, you know, some of the telephoto lenses out there are impressive, but are they worth more than double what the other device you could buy that would otherwise give you the experience you're looking for? No, of course not.
Speaking of the camera, so I think that would be, I wouldn't say that it's an exception, but I think that's the thing that people come to care about, especially as their primary camera. Well, but that said, I kind of do wonder if the camera too is at its good enough point.
Right.
What do we think about that?
Do you know what? Sorry, Will, I will take this one because I am the camera nerd here. I think that we kind of hit a point. And I think we discussed it in the really early episodes of Pixelated, Abner, when we were talking about, I think we were talking about the 8A. I think we were talking about how, like, from that period of, when you have a point and shoot camera in your pocket, you just want it to just do the bare minimum would be a good photo, but you want a photo that you remember. And I think, considering smart displays, I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I will loop it back. It will make sense. With smart displays, I found that I don't take photos and never see them anymore. On my first wave of smartphones, the camera, I mean, by today's standards, the cameras are bloody terrible, but you take a picture and you would have to seek it out to go see it. If you have a smart display, you take a picture and you see it. And the flaws, I think, are less important. And to tie into your point, Abner, they have been good enough for a long time. I think the optimizations that a lot of these camera makers have, I mean, a lot of them kind of stole that HDR bracketing from Google at the top end. When Pixel came out, it was so revolutionary in that respect. And the computational side of things, everyone's kind of caught up. A lot of the photos kind of look the same, and it's all about consistency. There's photos I've taken with the Pixel 3 that I sometimes regularly see on my Pixel tablet in front of me and my smart display, Nest Hub, I can't even remember the name of it, in my living room. And the first thing I think is not necessarily how bad the edges are of detection for portrait mode. It's just, that was a phenomenal photo. I took it at the time I took it. So yeah, I agree. I do kind of think that cameras have been good enough for a really, really long time now. And I think it's just kind of a case of what your visual elements that you like.
Yeah, personally, when I look at my camera roll or what I use for wallpaper specifically, I see photos that I took with the Pixel 7, Pixel 8, and I'm fine with it. I'm more than fine, actually. I'm happy with it. It still looks great to this day. And I would say that we've, like Damien is saying, we've reached that good enough point. But I don't know. I think what brought me onto this topic is like you see the resurgence of disposable cameras, of Polaroids. Well, they have been for a few years, but how much do people really care about that image quality?
I think they like the look, don't they? People like a specific look. I mean, I know I'm gonna. Do you
I'd
think?
say
do you
more
think
than
that?
look? I'd say they like the tangibleness of it. I mean, photo printers for smartphones absolutely exist.
Yeah, but I have one. I highly recommend one from Xiaomi. If you get the opportunity to get one, it's amazing to have, like you say, a tangible photo that you've taken. It is crazy. It kind of rewires your brain to be like, I could print that. I could put that on the wall. Like, it is really, really cool to have that, because I feel like photography is quite like a holistic experience, and for smartphone photography, you don't necessarily have that, because you just go bang, 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 take 50 photos. And we did it when we were at MWC, didn't we, Abner, where we were kind of like, we took our time, took some cool photos, saw some really cool stuff. And those photos, I know that they are good. Whereas if I just went and did the brainless touristing and just went bam, 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 and recorded everything, I maybe wouldn't have had as much of a good time taking photos. I don't know. We always have a good time anyway, don't we, Abner? So.
Is there anything to the idea that like the only thing I would really want cameras to change right now is maybe to add a little bit more character back into their shots? Because I do think we have gone a little too far in processing. Like I feel like no matter what phone I pick up from any of these like big companies, like with the exception of like older OnePlus devices, rest in peace, like it's your Pixel and your Galaxy and so on. I mean, those are really the two big players, and that's sort of the problem, is that they're sort of the only two left. But it's like I do wish I didn't have to like edit every good photo I take to make it better. Do you know what I mean? Like that didn't used to happen. I used to be happy with what would come out, and now I'm always like, especially on Pixel, I'm always like, let me just bump that contrast a little bit. Let me just bump that saturation a little bit. And I wish that is sort of the last thing I wish, is that I could have a little bit more control over this without having to control every photo, which is ironic in the AI era to be like, why is this not just like happening automatically for me? Isn't that the whole promise of this phase that Google is in?
I mean, I use Zero Cam, so I get that back, but I know I've talked about it at length, so I'm not going to bore anyone with the details again.
I'm kind of the opposite, actually. I've stopped really editing photos, and that I guess my mindset has become that whatever picture the camera took I trust that to capture that moment, to capture the look, to capture the scene. So in the past few years, I've kind of stopped editing.
That's so interesting, because I have found it so, again, especially on Pixel, there are times where I just watch the processing drain the saturation out of the shot. Like it really shows up a lot when I take photos of my orange cat Linus, who I sometimes will look like exactly as orange as he does in the shot, and then I will watch the shot 2 seconds later, like he looks noticeably more blonde, and it's like that's what I have to go in and fix frequently. And it's things like that where I'm like, that color balance isn't right. It's optimizing to try to create an equal balance of brightness across the shot, but it ends up distorting what the photo actually was. Yeah, but like I think this might be two different. This might also be like. This might straight
it's
up
your
just
cat.
be like
The problem is your cat. The problem is your cat.
It might be Linus's fault. Might be Linus's fault. It might be, I don't know, the color temperature of the outside light. LA versus Buffalo. I don't know.
I hope that over time this is probably really related to it is who is really leading in the camera look stakes. Like it felt like in the early days of smartphone cameras, it's not Samsung, Apple really kind of drove the narrative of what an image should look like out of a phone.
Absolutely,
and then I feel like Google have done it a little bit for maybe 3 or 4 years up to maybe Pixel 5 era. And then it's almost like, have we flipped back to iPhone? Does Samsung just kind of do what the hell they want? I don't really know who's leading there. I think the Hasselblad stuff for OnePlus, we need to touch on that. They were I love the colours out of them, but they never really maximised the setups. I don't know.
I think if you look at the entire market, right, like if you open it up to everything and we rewind the clock 6 months so that OnePlus is still there, I think OnePlus under Hasselblad, and then also like Oppo's like larger sensors usually. Mm-hmm. So that was probably the more outstanding option. But like I have used very few of their phones because they're not sold here. So I would say like the OnePlus 13 was really the last like smartphone camera that really blew me away when I was using it, where I was like, oh, I'm actually like, I'm taking photos where like the second I hit that shutter, I'm like, damn, I can't believe I got that in a smartphone photo. It truly like it took it from like all of these are good to some of these are incredible, you know, which is a choice on consistency, because I would say that the OnePlus 13's camera was not as consistent as what you'll get out of a Pixel, but had higher highs, and I don't know, but these, if you look at what people are actually buying, which is Pixels and I guess, and then but really Galaxy devices and iPhones, like it sort of feels like I don't hear people talking about their cameras a lot anymore, to be honest with you. It feels like everybody has kind of accepted that like smartphone photos are like pretty much what they are. I don't think it's really easy to tell the difference between a photo that was taken on a Samsung device and an iPhone and a Pixel anymore. Like they have their own characteristics if you're really a nerd about it, but if you are not even an average user, like I am not like a camera nerd the way you are, Damien, for example. And like, and I say that in a loving way, to be clear, but like I have a harder time. I will look for things like I think Samsung's processing isn't as good, and I think specifically they handle motion really poorly. But outside of like little like errors like that, like I have a hard time like fully knowing what came from what when in photo comparisons.
I think by the time you've uploaded the image to a social platform, which I still think most people do, I think it gets even tougher to tell. And then I don't know. I don't upload to Instagram very often. I think it's 2024 since I last did it, which is
same
like
actually. I think
I find that I don't make tweaks after the fact. I've just put the image as it is. Whereas I wonder how many people are still using those like filters and stuff. I'm surprised more. I mean, Samsung kind of copied.
That feels absolutely down. Like seeing how people filter their photos.
I think maybe a lot of it is just apathy towards photos. Just take it and put it there. Maybe the Gen Z or Gen Z are onto something and just tell it as it is and just have it raw and it's fine and like it's unfiltered. But at the same time, you're still using a piece of technology that allows you to have a curated algorithmic look at whatever you share. So I don't know. That's maybe a moot point. I'm intrigued to hear what you guys think before we get into a bit more of like software stuff, because I think software's really, really important when we talk about Android. Yeah. What would you want as your key components of a camera system? Because I think for me, it would be probably pixel, motion and consistency, Hasselblad look from Oppo/OnePlus, and I think maybe feature set from Samsung. I'm not sure. Or Xiaomi, something like that.
I like the Pixel's like relatively simplistic UI and everything. I'm happy with that. I think what I would really want is either a Hasselblad-esque color profile, color science, color tuning, or the oh my god, what are they called? The camera what are the modes called on iOS? The different like
photographic styles.
Photographic styles. Thank you, Abner. I was stuck on the word camera and not photographic. Something the equivalent to photographic. I think they're really, and I think I've said this before, but they're really bad. Like I think it's so confusing to me that Apple continues to hold this like reputation of being the like the more simple choice, the easier to learn choice, because like things like photographic styles are like terrible flows for the user. Like they make no sense. But once you have it set up, I do like that idea of being able to be like, Apple has made this, they have their own processing that they give to every iPhone user, but then you can kind of go in and tweak it to be as saturated or contrasty or cool or warm as you kind of want the shots to be, and it can be that default experience that keeps me from having to edit the photos. So like that's really it's an and/or situation, but that's sort of where I'm at, where I want a little bit more control over what I'm getting out of the photo than I think is being offered.
I think my only contribution to add, and it's a weird one, is I like how simplistic the iOS camera app is. The recent redesigns with 26, 27. I much prefer it over the Pixel UI, which I think is actually pretty complicated at this point. But
I like it. I don't know. I find it. I agree it's complicated, it's but I feel like everything's laid out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's nice and comfy.
I'm in like that super minimalist phase where
that's fair.
iOS zero cam to me is too minimalist, but that's
that's why I love it.
But I don't know, iOS feels that's the camera app that looks nice to me. Maybe that's more a visual and functional thing, but yeah, that's where I am.
I would love to see Google just go ultra controls and just throw a Snapseed into the Pixel camera app. Could you imagine how insane that would be? And I think people would kind of like that. People love Snapseed the app, so why not integrate some more components of it? I don't know why they don't do that. So if anybody out there from Google is listening, just put Snapseed in your app and make everybody happy. But yeah.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying Pixelated, don't forget to sign up for 9 to 5 Google Pro to gain access to our weekly bonus show, Pixelated Pro. This week, we're talking about viral AI assistants, memories of the old internet, and why people don't seem to click links anymore. Sign up today at 9to5google.com/pro.
Away from cameras then, because there's software running on it. Where do we think Android is in like its I think Android 17 is kind of, in my opinion, has put it in a position where we cannot expect these big changes all the time. AI will be where we get functionality, and rightly or wrongly, and it can make up for some gaps. I feel like maybe 15, we hit a point where it was like, we're probably not going to get much year over year, and you can kind of see that in these OS updates now. We're waiting for QPR1, and what's QPR1 going to bring to the table? Nothing like last year, big visual overhaul. I don't know. Do you think it's in a strong position, or like are we in a position now where Android is kind of running out of runway for major changes that we probably expected years ago?
Look, like you use, like, for all of its faults, is Windows 11 like that radically different than Windows 10, which like was it that, and I'm skipping 8, was it that radically different than 7? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we have hit this, like, I mean, like, truly, a lot of the things I do on my Windows 11 computer are not that different from what I was doing on Windows XP 20 years ago. Yeah. And I feel like we're there with Android, where like the only thing that will really happen is like, every few years a visual overhaul. And it's tricky, right? Because we are kind of talking about Google's build of Android specifically when we talk about this, because not every company like embraces, in fact, few kind of embrace the distinct look that they have fully built and instead lean into trying to clone Apple, right? So Android is in this weird space where it's like there is Google's flavor of Android, and then sort of everybody else, despite, Samsung's build not feeling like Motorola's, like they do all kind of take aspects from like the Apple side of the fence for some reason, whereas Google like basically holds off on any kind of like liquid glass-esque enhancements. But at the same time, I sort of look at Google's build of Android as like Android in a way, in a world where AOSP is like not really a thing that matters much anymore outside of like very niche communities. You kind of have to look at it like, okay, then that's what it's not stock Android, but that is Android as the developer of Android would like you to think of it. And to that extent, I think it's rock solid. But I do think that they Google, I mean, and they have to, I suppose, based on where the company's charted, but they lean on Gemini a lot as a crutch to make it feel like Android is getting more new features than maybe it is. Like, some of them are new and some of them are just kind of like, this is sort of just an extension of like a chatbot.
So in terms of design, as we've all been saying, there is room for Google to push Samsung and other OEMs to actually adopt dynamic color, to actually adopt Material 3 Expressive. So there is room in that regard, a bit more so than hardware, which is some of them using. Do I think Samsung and others will move away from the iOS copy of it? No, I don't. And I don't think any of us do either. So in terms of design, there is stuff to look forward to. And I guess more broadly, apps, the third-party apps, you could say that there is more. No, this is a historical issue. Maybe issue is too strong a word, but they've never really aligned in the way iOS can get its developers to align the look and feel. But I don't know. I guess apps is where I want to focus on here. I am somewhat of the opinion that, and this is a very hot take combined with AI stuff, but I kind of think that apps, the future is generative UI, where people request the apps, the functionalities they want, the use cases they want, and it's ultimately the OS that makes it for them. I think we are headed towards that point, and I don't know what that says about the third-party app ecosystem in the long term, but I do imagine a future where there are default apps that stay the same, like your calendar, your clock app, or whatever. But I feel like once a user needs something more specific, like let's say a trip planning app, they could very easily generate that, and I think most people would not know the difference.
I think that could be. I mean, we've talked about it before, haven't we? Here and across the website and everywhere else in between. Is that if Google does that and kind of decouples Android from the way that it works right now and has a more broad Gemini spine where you can ask, oh yeah, I want a calendar widget that also integrates my emails that I received on that day. I mean, that's a bad example, but that kind of stuff I do genuinely think is where we're going to get those major gains. Because like, what are we actually? I feel like. I mean, currently AI isn't doing anything that that on a phone that I wouldn't do anyway. I'd ask the Google Assistant to turn on my lights, turn on the, disable certain switches in my home. I'm still doing that with Gemini right now. I may have a conversation with it. That's kind of cool. But I'm not getting it to control aspects of my phone, or I'm not getting it to design aspects of my phone that you alluded to, Abner. I do think that once that happens, my opinion of it will change drastically, i.e., I can make my phone my own. And with Gemini, is it create my widget or create a widget that's
create my widget? Yes.
So create my widget is that first glimpse, isn't it? And I probably think that could be one of the biggest changes we have to Android in 4 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
easily.
They did tease at generative. They think that generative UI plays an important role, and it starts with create my widget.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that ironically, I think that this generative UI will be more of a thing than controlling your apps with AI or your voice specifically, because I'm still it's not a solved problem in terms of the technicals, in terms of like desktop control is not even there, and it's more power intensive, etc., etc. We don't have the local models to drop the latency to basically nothing. I do think that the first major use of AI will probably be generative UI over app control, ironically.
Yeah, I think I've tested app automations, and I know that's been available in the US for a little bit, and I just think that it's too hands off. I can maybe understand like Gemini Spark. I'm intrigued to see how that works. I know it's available in preview, isn't it, in the US? Like, I don't think that on my phone is something I want to do. I think maybe if I had a desktop and I'm doing like desktop-y things, then it's fine. But I think for like phony stuff, I think it's kind of like this little experience where I have all my contacts, and it's a bit more personable, isn't it? I don't necessarily would think I want AI to be doing things like booking dinner reservations and stuff for me without major oversight. And maybe my opinion will change, but yeah, generative UI feels like a really good way to do it. I think we've often complained about customization options being removed, and that would be the ultimate customization, wouldn't it? There would be nothing that could compare to it, with Android being i.e. the platform, the tinkerer's choice of platform. I think.
If I can push back on a little bit of this, I think the reason I don't see generative apps catching on to I do think they'll be more, it'll be more popular than agentic tools on Android, which I kind of think are a dead end. I truly cannot think of a thing I do on my phone that I need an agent to do. I don't.
The thing I would just caution there that it's not good enough, and I think the history of technology is people ultimately want the convenience, but I don't think we're technically there yet.
Yes, what task am I just don't frequently do tasks on my phone that are longer than a few minutes, I guess. Like I struggle to think of what that ends up being, but I might be an outlier there. To talk about the apps thing, I do think that will be a niche community, but I fear that there is, and Damien, you brought up the exact perfect thing for me to talk about. I think this will happen, right? I think we will definitely enter the world of like Google rolling out a suite of tools, or maybe like it's one app, but it's a suite of tools that allows you to build these like generative AI apps for yourself to use in the way that you can kind of do in like Codex and so on and so forth right now. Or I guess it's not Codex anymore, it's the super app. But there will be a point where there's essentially a fork in the road, and it's either you go, full technical, and that guarantees it's going to be niche forever. And I'm not saying you're like coding or whatever, but like if you open it up to do a lot of things, a lot of people are going to be turned off. The thing that is in my head would be like Tasker, right? Like it's what a power app for users. If you are patient enough to learn how to use it and so on, right? Like that's one route. The other route is, I think, more in line with what we've seen from Google on the customization aspect, which is, okay, fine, you guys want icon packs on Pixel. Here's AI generated icons that you can generate yourself. There's like 5 or 6 presets. Maybe we'll add more, but you're stuck to this pretty rigid formula as we generate this for you. And I think that's the more likely route for this to go. And I think that gets more normal people to use it, but I think they end up kind of being like, oh, okay, and then moving on. And I think enthusiasts, if they go that route, are disappointed in the same way that I think a lot of us are like disappointed in the AI icon pack thing Google rolled out.
Yeah, maybe. I think with good guide rails, I think it could be very, very useful.
I guess it's just it's either, I just don't see the middle ground that pleases both camps, is what I'm saying. Like I feel like they're going to have to either go more technical, which closes off from the regular people that I think would probably get more use out of this anyway, or they go with guardrails, but then people who want these apps to do more are going to feel boxed in and frustrated.
Possibly. I think it's kind of like, to tie it up in a little bit neat bow, I think it's one of those two things that's going to happen, isn't it? If they may give us a broad option where you can just have these guide rails, a bit like with the AI custom UI icons, which are not really that custom. Right. It's a little bit like the AI wallpapers thing, which is a really good way to test it and kind of build it out, I guess, and see how people use it.
Yeah,
I kind of think that's what will happen. But I think more broadly, the smartphone has hit its peak. There isn't really a great deal of true innovation that can happen anymore because it hit its peak a few years ago, and now we're just talking to like the intricacies of software and integrating AI into that. This is going to be really good for Abner because I know he's very, very excited for this. The big frontier now is visual UI, i.e. Android XR, Android VR platforms. VR maybe not so much. I'm kind of not sold on that. Like, if glasses are the future, then we're right on that precipice now, aren't we? We're right on the very edge before this potentially becomes truly mainstream. Like those Meta ones, the Perv glasses. I think if we had if we have a visual UI that's within your field of vision, and you can have Android right there and everything at your fingertips in your eyeballs, I think that might be
my
that might be the
You're
change.
describing my nightmare. I don't want that.
I'm very intrigued. Having tested it, I don't know if I'm a full convert yet, but there was some aspects of it that I was like, okay, I get this. I can definitely see the user value there.
I do think that Google's gonna do gonna make a really big move into this space and like make a big swing at it. I don't know. I really don't know where the public sentiment is gonna like fall on this thing. I think it's the worst thing that could happen for Google right now is all of this summer's press around Meta. I really do think it will impact Google's launch to a certain extent because Meta is so destructive to everything they touch that like when you have 3 or 4 bad news stories in a row about Meta's smart glasses, that does end up,
like coloring
poisoning the well a little bit. I'm not saying it's a dead product line, but I do think like Google is going to have to find a way to clean up Meta's mess a little bit when they like first put these on sale. In addition to like, man, Glasshole was just enough of an insult to catch on with people 10 years ago, 15 years ago or whatever. And like, I'm dying to, maybe most people have memory hold it to the point where it doesn't matter, but I am curious to know if people are going to be like, Google's making glasses? I remember that. It was weird and bad. And like, I don't know. Again, I'm speculating. Like, I've no idea how this launch is going to go for them. Other than the fact that I do know that they are going to have to probably talk more about safety and privacy than they would have because of Meta.
I do wonder though, because Google, if Google doesn't make their own hardware, which I'm surprised that they won't, I wonder if the onus is on Samsung, particularly, who are probably going to be the first to do it. Like they're much more invested in it because they're selling the hardware, and Google is just the software stewards. From a purely software perspective, it looks like the shift that maybe some people were waiting for. This feels like the most science fiction-y shift forward for like tech that I've seen. But when they are going to have to. I don't think it's going to be Google, to be honest. I think it's probably going to be Samsung that has to deal with the fallout from Meta. Personally, that's my opinion on it, because Google aren't the hardware people. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Then again, Ray-Ban does Ray-Ban deal with Meta's issues in the same way?
Not
Probably
necessarily,
not as
but
much,
I think that the category has been consigned to Ray-Ban. Like Meta glasses is not taking the brunt of it. It is Meta Ray-Bans, and I am of the opinion that Meta has somehow found a way to ruin Ray-Bans as a branding and cultural thing. And oof.
Yeah.
What are you most excited for then, Abner, in terms of like the glasses side of things? Like, I know that you are probably the most excited of the team of this. Like, what are your key, like, obviously, let's just pretend and skip forward so that we're going to get the visual side of things first. What is the big key usage that you think this will change from using your smartphone on a day-to-day basis?
I think that I'm still so very invested in point of view cameras being like something that you have to experience it to realize how valuable that is, that instant access to a camera. Of course, the privacy considerations of that, but I think they will outweigh it once you see that how powerful and authentic and immediate those shots are. But in terms of the functionality, I think it's the headphones initially. It's like always wearing headphones and being able to deliver silent information that way. But in terms of the display thing, I just think that it's ironically you have to do more technology to get less technology. If glasses are enough to deliver message notifications, and I don't think audio notifications are going to work for most people because the chance of overhearing it is kind of annoying. But I think that the discrete notifications, I think that is really a way to maybe have people use the rest of their phones.
Do you see it as a supplementary thing? Because I know there's talk about I don't even know who this quote's attributed to. It might be Zuckerberg actually saying that he thinks that phones will be replaced by glasses at some point in the future. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Do you think it's a supplementary thing, or do you think it's its own standalone, like, I will ditch my phone for this?
From a technical standpoint, that is not plausible for, I don't know, next 5 years. Again, you don't want to put a 5G radio next to your head. So there will always be off-handing processing to the phone. But I think in the further future, like the idea that instead of looking at a laptop, imagine a laptop quality screen always floating in your line of view. I think that could be absolutely revolutionary. It has the potential to replace your phone, but until we can work through these cultural stigmas around it, especially like we have a technology right now is in a state where people kind of want less of it. I think you can't discount the phone for the foreseeable future. And I think that will always remain the default thing for people as the primary computing device for, I say, a good 10 years.
Do you know what I think really makes it so that smart glasses are more like a smartwatch than a replacement for a smartphone? Obviously you can kind of replace a smartphone with a smartwatch a little bit, or at least you can leave your phone at home. But I think as long as, and I don't see this changing anytime soon, as long as messaging is as prominent a thing as it is, like I just don't. I don't have long conversations through my smartwatch, and like I'm not going to do it through smart glasses either. Like I really think that like the ability to type is underrated, and you can't do that on smart glasses. I really think that like having something tactile, even a touchscreen, is yet what.
I think in like the future where your glasses can replace your laptop screen, yes, you'll be able to type on any surface, but that is still far future stuff.
I just like the tactility.
How is that working when you're walking around?
Yeah.
You know, like I agree with you, Abner. I'm more on your side for replacing something like a laptop, or like essentially being a little bit more of a, you know, maybe it's not all of the processing power. It still has that handshake, but it is like you don't look at your laptop screen anymore. I'm with you more on that, but like when I think about like what I use my phone for, it's messaging is far and away the number one use case for my phone. And like I'll send voice texts in the car. I don't mind doing that. And like I wouldn't mind, you know, if I was walking somewhere with smart glasses on and someone messaged me like, "Hey, you on your way?" And I would absolutely reply with my voice from my smart glasses, like, "Yeah, on my way." But like you're not going to want to have you know, group chat, like conversations about meaningless whatever, like through your glasses. I think that's
fair point. Yeah.
To me, it's a little bit like we really haven't seen people be like, "I'm going all in on just my smartwatch," despite the fact that has a similar level of freedom and access to smart glasses. It's obviously not right in front of your face, but there's something to that. And you can go cellular and all of that. You can do everything from your phone, and in fact do more, because like, you know, I was sitting here wondering, if you went full smart glasses, how am I doing mobile payments? Right? Am I taking my glasses off, tapping them? I don't know.
Headbutt the terminal.
Headbutting the pad. There's
QR
things like
codes.
that, but it might be QR codes.
It all comes as QR codes.
Everybody loves QR codes. Just ask restaurants from 2020 to 2023. But I guess to me, it's just like, I feel like if smart glasses were really going to kill phones, like for sure, or if we would see more people relying on just smartwatches right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Oh, okay. Let's kind of give ourselves a report card then for where Android is currently when we wrap this up, because I feel like we've had full wave of emotion there that I'm talking about our favorite platform, or at least most people's favorite platform. If you're listening to this, it should be as well. I genuinely will be intrigued to see what you guys think. I'll let you guys go first, and I'll give you where I think that they are. Let's do a report card. Let's go. What, A to C? Is it C? C bad grade?
F.
I don't know. C's a passing grade.
F
Let's go to F.
lowest.
Yeah, let's go to F.
But
I'm
just grading Android as a whole.
Yeah, Android as a platform, the entire thing, end to end, phones, glasses, VR, you name it. We got TV as well thrown in, which I think is a untapped potential, or there's a lot of tapped potential there.
A B. There's things I can probably think of to improve on most places besides the phone, and so I think a B is a solid grade.
I don't disagree with that. I think B there's always room for improvement, but I think the current state of is absolutely fine and effective of a mature platform.
Okay.
100%.
I'm going to go against the grain then. I'm going to say A-, and I'm only going to say A- because I think that we reached a point where Android has proven that it's as competent as any other platform out there. It can go into places that even iOS definitely can't do. I'm intrigued to see what happens with Android on desktop platforms in the coming months. We barely even touched on it. I know we've been a little bit negative about Google Book, but I think when Abner's kind of brought me around when we talked briefly about generative UI and generative apps, I do think there's definitely some untapped potential there. And if people can tailor their experiences to what they want, and especially a technical product like that, I think it could be really, really powerful. I guess we're kind of on the eve of Pixel. Well, not quite, but we're a couple of weeks away from Pixel 11 launch, and I think we have to put a positive spin on it because I think there's a lot of things to be positive about. Maybe we've been our expectations have been dampened because we're getting a similar phone than we've seen in the past 2 years. But Android, the platform's going from strength to strength. We might lose a few players here and there, but yeah, Android's in a good spot, and I'm excited for the future.
Yeah. It's a good place to leave it.
I think it's a good place to leave it.
Yeah.
Let's head over to our little pro enclave, talk a little bit more random things, maybe get into this a little bit as well. I'd love to have you join us. Go check out the links down in the show notes if you do want to join 9to5 Google Pro. It helps support us, support what we do here. You might get some kind of insight into our little interesting lives outside of tech as well. And I'd love to have you come listen. So come on over and we'll continue the conversation.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Pixelated, a 9to5 Google podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we ask that you rate and review it on the podcast platform of your choice and help spread the word by sharing the show with friends or on social media.